Hide and Seek by Sean Platt and David Wright. Robin and Lucy had been at the park for a half hour already, though it felt like twice that at least. Still, it was better than being cooped up in the house. 2 slides, 4 swing sets, a rock wall, and a rather impressive play area, all just enough to keep 4-year-old Lucy occupied and away from her endless processions of why. Lucy wasn't trying to be annoying, but she had no idea that one question spilling into 100 were fingernails on a chalkboard, making Robin want to run, hide, then bury herself beneath the covers. Or simply text her lover, Brian. Lucy's first question was always harmless. "Can I watch Barney?" she had asked just over an hour ago. "No," Robin had said. "Why?" "Because you've watched an hour more than you should have already today." "Why?" "Because too much TV isn't good for you." "Why?" "Because you're little and your brain is still developing. Watching TV puts your mind into a sleep-like state and slows your brain waves and body functions." "Why?" "Because watching TV is passive, not active. Active is better." "Why?" "Because even if you're happy sitting on the couch all day watching TV, your body isn't. Going outside helps you grow into a bigger, better, stronger person. And my job is to make you the biggest, best, and strongest person you can be. If I let you watch TV all day, I'm letting TV be your mummy instead of me." Lucy was silent for several seconds, maybe a full half-minute, before opening her mouth again. Robin expects another. Why? Instead she got, "Can we go to the park?" And that's how they ended up at Veterans Park, 3 blocks from their house, while a mountain of laundry to finish, a dinner to cook, and 2 bathrooms to clean was waiting for Robin at home. She'd get to it eventually. The last thing she wanted was for Steve to come home, acting like an asshole with his usual, "I don't pull 6 figures so I can come home to dirty laundry and dishes." Robin had spent nearly every waking hour with Lucy during the last 4 years. If she hadn't met Elizabeth Mitchell at Kroger, in the middle of Lucy's raging temper tantrum 2 years earlier, Robin might have gone clinically insane. Neither Robin nor Steve cared much for playdates or daycare. Both believed the first 5 years of a child's life were essential, and time spent with your child during those years was an investment that paid dividends forever. But somehow all the work of it had landed on Robin. She had left the classroom easily enough. After all, she'd only been teaching kindergarten for 5 years before getting pregnant, and Robin truly wanted to give Lucy the best. But often, her best was exhausting and felt unrewarding, even though she knew deep inside she was making a difference. Fortunately, Elizabeth and her daughter Jenna were both wonderful and perfectly compatible with Robin and Lucy. They had developed a mutually beneficial friendship where they felt natural handing off their children each week for a few hours of freedom. It was in those few hours when Robin was able to slowly rediscover who she'd been in the years before Lucy. Because being a stay-at-home mum was hard. Not that Robin agreed with the women who said it was the hardest job in the world. It wasn't. That was ridiculous. Did she have it as bad as a cop, or a firefighter, or hell, a lawyer or surgeon, or any of the millions of jobs where lives were on the line? No. But it was hard nonetheless, always being on, answering the never-ending whys, as present as the sun, always being mummy, and never having any quality time with the Robin side of herself. She never had sick days or vacation days, or I don't feel like fucking showing up today days. And the worst part was that she wasn't allowed to complain. To complain, to the wrong people anyway, was deemed selfish and unmotherly. Robin was happy at first, even during the rough times when Lucy was an infant. But then something in Steve changed. His patience had worn thin with both her and their child. And when Robin tried to vent her day's frustrations, no different from him coming home and telling her about his asshole boss Jensen, she saw only a curl of his lip at the bottom of a face that displayed a total lack of sympathy. "Why are you bitching?" he'd say, even though she wasn't bitching. "Believe me, you have it easy. I wish that I could stay home all day sitting around watching TV and playing with Lucy. You can bet I'd have the house spotless, with a plate of pasta piled high when you came home, and maybe something slinky for after Lucy started snoring." As if all she was doing was managing Lucy's physical needs. She was trying to raise a human being, not a dog. But then Steve was a spoiled brat who'd always had a mummy to clean up after him, had never so much as scrubbed a toilet his entire life, could barely cook mac and cheese, and rolled off of her and fell asleep the second he finished doing what never lasted longer than 4 or 5 minutes. Steve treating her like she sat on her ass all day was total bullshit, as though being with Lucy all day, every day and night wasn't a life of endless to-dos. How did he think Lucy was potty-trained at 18 months, talking before she turned 2, or spelling her name and reciting the alphabet a full month before the Disney princess party they'd thrown for her 3rd birthday? Robin was the reason Lucy made many kindergartners look like special ed students in comparison. Steve could claim little responsibility for Lucy's success, and God knew he couldn't claim to have done much else around the house. Robin washed the dishes, cooked every meal, dressed Lucy on the days when she refused to dress herself, did all the laundry, which was shockingly without end considering only 3 of them were living there, bought all the groceries, took care of bath and playtime, plus of course managed all of the bills and the 800 other things she was always too tired to mention. The endless list would have been fine with Robin, if she was allowed to vent a bit. But she wasn't. Robin wasn't allowed to bitch about her unending domestic duties, any more than she was allowed to bitch about her complete lack of a social life, which she found difficult at times and downright torturous during others. Elizabeth and Jenna were great, but Robin had a classroom before Lucy and a ton of friends before that. But none of her close friends had children yet. And women without children, married or not, tended to avoid breeders like they made cancer instead of babies. Or maybe it was simply the fact that their schedules no longer matched. By 9 p.m. most Saturday nights, Robin was falling into bed, exhausted, making it difficult, if not near impossible, to maintain her pre-Steve and Lucy circle. Sure, Robin loved being a stay-at-home mum, but it was nice to have a conversation with someone more than 3 feet tall, who didn't resort to whining or tantrums when they didn't get what they wanted. And someone other than Steve, who treated her more like a mother than a wife lately. She needed something else, which was where Brian came in. She never meant to start cheating, and she'd been on Facebook like always, checking her status, hanging on to her high school and college friends by her digital fingernails. Robin didn't remember how many times she'd seen Brian's comments on her friend Paula's posts before realising how much they always made her laugh. But she did know they became online friends mere minutes after that. The flirting, done in private messages, was harmless at first, and Robin didn't think anything of it at all, even though a part of her loved the attention immediately and craved it in no time at all. Soon she realised, though she would never have admitted it to anyone, Brian made her wetter with a sentence than Steve had in a year using both of his fingers and the occasional tongue. The 3rd week after their private messaging started found Lucy at Jenna's house for a playdate, and Robin meeting Brian with her panties puddled at her ankles while bent over his sofa. She and Brian had been rinsing and repeating at least once a week in the 3 months since. Even now, spending time at the park with Lucy so she could be a good mum and not allow TV to mindlessly raise her daughter, Robin couldn't stop thinking about Brian, or sexting him. Sex with Steve was never bad, exactly. Before Lucy was born, it had been rocking, but in the 4.5 years since, it had slowly circled the drain of monotony. The same positions in the same places, with the same person, and usually at the same time of night. Once upon a time, Robin would have seen the prospect of cheating on her husband as slightly more likely than her robbing a liquor store. But that was well before minutes with Brian murdered routine with a double-barrel blast of anticipation. It was hot as fuck for Diane Lane in Unfaithful, and worked for Annette Bening in American Beauty, along with many women in one of the fastest-growing demographics in America. Robin was far from alone. Though men still cheated far more than women, situations similar to hers were rapidly on the rise. Or so she'd been telling herself several times a day since her affair with Brian started. Brian had opened the cage door and let her inner kitten out. It was the first time Robin felt her raw sexuality return since her 3rd trimester. Though she had never been a girl with low self-esteem, time with Brian made her realise that her tank had been dipping ever closer to empty. Brian made her feel sexier, more beautiful, and more loved. And every sext seemed to make her wetter. I can't wait to lay my lips on your soft skin, travel down to the base of your throat before I drag the tip of my tongue up to your moist lips while running my hand up the middle of your back to unhook your bra. Just one of the million things Robin loved about Brian was the time he took with his sexts. Never any broken language or text speak. Full words only. No shortcuts on his cell or in bed. Robin had a 4-year-old to manage, giving her an excuse for shortcuts. I want you to make me wet. Robin moved her eyes from her iPhone to Lucy, who was halfway across the Diego bars, swinging from one side to the other like a monkey. She dropped to the other side, threw her arms up in the air, then turned back to Robin, waiting for her mommy to smile. Robin did, then felt the buzz in her hand and the tingle between her legs. She turned her eyes back to the iPhone. I love making you wet even more than you making me hard. I want to hold you, to touch you, to kiss you. I want to see you blush from my touch. Robin looked up at Lucy, running toward the swings, then typed, Now I'm wet. Make me wetter. The next 30 seconds of waiting were excruciating, but worth the wait. I want to feel you nibbling along the length of my neck as I explore the depths of your body. I want to feel your teeth sink into my flesh as you slip from control. I want to shudder as you take me into your mouth and make my hard cock harder. Robin felt suddenly flushed, almost embarrassed, wondering if anyone had any idea what she was doing. Of course they didn't, but knowing didn't keep her from feeling exposed in the gaze of the tall man in the suit playing with his twin boys, the group of women making catty observations over in the shade of the jacarandas, or the fat man with the bushy beard scooping giant spoonfuls of yogurt into his mouth. Her phone buzzed again, sending Robin another tingle of fresh excitement. I can't wait for you to lower your wet centre onto my panting tongue, letting me soak you more before you lower yourself onto my cock, then ride me hard into a scream. I want to feel your breasts crushed against my chest as I taste your tongue like a prisoner in my mouth. Robin wondered what Elizabeth would be doing in about an hour. It wasn't her usual day to watch Lucy, but she probably wouldn't mind an early swap. Robin could reward Lucy with a little time in front of the TV when they got home, then go back into the bedroom and spend 15 minutes with her open nightstand drawer, but she'd much rather have the real thing throbbing inside her if possible. Robin had to be careful, though. There was only so far she could stretch Elizabeth's rubber band before it finally snapped into questions she wouldn't want to answer. Too many last-minute emergencies would draw unwanted attention. And while Robin had been surprisingly successful at keeping Brian a secret, she wasn't a particularly good liar when confronted. She could also invite Brian into the workshop at the back of the house, but she'd already regretted doing that the 2 times she had, due to the danger and the disrespect. She might not be happy with Steve, but this was still their house. Lucy kept looking up, vying for her attention, which was 90% on her iPhone, if not more. Even while waiting for her next buzz and tingle, Robin was more interested in checking Twitter and Facebook than she was in watching her 4-year-old. She was just so burned out. The last couple of months had been particularly bad, with her daughter constantly shifting her behaviour patterns. At least when she had kids in class, Mrs. Robin could catch a break at some point during the day. Teachers would join classes for lunch or recess, allowing each other to grab some alone time to catch up on their work. Without Elizabeth, parenting breaks didn't exist. Sure, Steve did his part, but doing his part usually meant letting Lucy do whatever in the hell she wanted while he watched sports or played video games, leaving Robin to clean up the chaos the next morning. During Steve's watch, Lucy had chopped chunks off of her own hair after she finished cutting the cat's first, trimmed a brand new dress she'd just had to have from Children's Place, Magic marketed a pair of slippers from Nordstrom announcing, "Mummy got a new pair of shoes too." And just this weekend, while Robin had been running some errands during a rare solo outing, Lucy had coloured her bedroom walls with marker, crayon and finger paint after pulling all the fluff from her favourite stuffed animal, Doggy the rabbit. It was no wonder Robin wanted Brian to fuck her into a coma. Robin knew the importance of teaching Lucy the word no, and outside of her tryst with Brian, she'd been consistent as a clock, trying everything from timeouts to blackouts of her favourite stuff. However, nothing was working lately. Lucy was doing anything and everything to mine attention from her mother, wherever and whenever she could get it. The child believed the world should revolve around her, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, probably since, for the most part, it always had. Robin had no idea how to change her daughter's attitude, other than use the change of schedule that school would bring to try and implement a tighter, stricter schedule. That was 3 months away, though. Robin wasn't sure if she'd last that long. Their conflicts usually centred on attention, of which Lucy could simply never get enough. Robin loved and used the play cup philosophy given to her by Sarah, the eldest, kinder teacher at Polk Elementary, the year before Robin left. The philosophy suggested filling a child's play cup halfway, then let them fill the remainder themselves. This worked well for a while. Robin would start reading. Lucy would finish the book. They would start drawing a picture together. Then Lucy would take the crayons. They would start building with blocks for 15 minutes. Then Lucy would turn their castle into a city. The play cup approach had stopped working about a month before. It hadn't worked all morning or at any time through the early afternoon. And it sure as hell wasn't working at the park while Robin was trying to sext with Brian. Every 5 seconds, Lucy was cartwheeling toward Robin with a fresh, "Look at me." "Mommy," Lucy cried, approaching her spot on the bench. "You said you would play with me." Robin looked up from her phone. "I said I would bring you to the park, sweetie. And I did. You can play by yourself now that we're here. That's why I brought you." "No," Lucy shook her head. "You said that when we got to the park we would play together. But we haven't played together at all. You've been sitting the whole time, just like last time and the time before that." She folded her arms across her chest. "Pretty soon you'll say it's time to go, and we won't get to play together at all." "I'm old and boring," Robin said. "Wouldn't you rather play with someone your own age?" Lucy said, "There's no one my age here, only babies and graders." Robin's inner guilt started to slither inside her. "Give me a minute," she said, "okay?" Lucy nodded, then Robin turned to her iPhone just as it buzzed. It was Brian. "Are you there? Don't you want to crush your tits against my chest while I tongue-fuck your mouth?" Robin uncrossed her legs, then crossed them back the other way, stealing a glance at Lucy before sexting, "BRB, soon as I can." "Okay," she said to Lucy, slipping the phone in her pocket. "What do you want to play?" Lucy squealed, then clapped, bouncing back and forth on her feet. "Can I give you choices?" "Sure," Robin smiled. "What are my choices?" "We could look for rolly-pollies over there." She pointed toward the backboards, where they'd found several colonies before, made mostly of dead colonists, baking in the sun. "Or we can play Dinosaur Cave." She paused for a moment, then added, "Or you could push me on the swings. But looking for rolly-pollies sounds like the most fun to me." Looking for rolly-pollies sounded like the least fun to Robin, but it wasn't too far behind Dinosaur Cave, which meant she'd have to crawl behind the rock wall, scrunched low enough to put an ache into her back that would last for hours while cramping her legs as Lucy roared around her. Swinging was best. "How about swinging?" Robin said. "Swinging is my last choice." Lucy shook her head. "I don't want to do that at all." "Then why did you make it a choice?" "Because you said you like choices in threes." Lucy was silent for a second and then said, "How about hide and seek?" Hide and seek was perfect. Robin could find a hiding spot that wouldn't hurt her back or cramp her legs, while making a quicker return to Brian. "Okay, hide and seek it is. You hide first, Mummy, and don't make it too hard." "Don't worry, I won't." She meant it. Robin wanted to be found quickly so Lucy could go hide. She didn't want to start sexting while having to worry about having her hiding place or her secret conversation discovered. It would be much better to finish while Lucy was hiding. Robin wanted a moment with Brian to focus. She was hot and wet and far too horny to be playing hide-and-seek with her daughter. She ran to crouch behind a large trash can, sitting between 2 jacarandas, then squatted, finding it impossible not to imagine herself squatting with Brian beneath her. She hoped for the 100th time that Elizabeth was home so she could squat low, over and over and over and faster, until she was curling her fingers into Brian's covers while screaming. Robin made sure the top of her head was peeking just above the trash can. Sure enough, less than 20 seconds after she stopped counting, Robin heard Lucy running toward her, screaming in triumph. "I found you!" Robin feigned disappointment, then said, "Well, I guess it's my turn to count. I hope you find a better spot than me." "Don't worry, Mummy," Lucy said, smiling widely. "I will." Robin counted to 20, then quickly slipped behind a bank of trees, rested her back against the trunk of the fattest one, then pulled her iPhone from her pocket. She spent half a minute almost not texting as she wrestled with her conscience. She should be playing hide-and-seek with her daughter. Sexting with Brian was wrong. Ignoring Lucy was even worse. It wasn't enough for Robin to be at the park. She had to be present too. Otherwise, she was only stealing from them both. Robin held the phone in her hand, fighting her impulses, before she finally swallowed, then started what she'd stopped at the bench. "Kay, I am back. Sorry for making you wait." Brian must have been waiting because his sext was buzzing in her palm a second later, a second before the tingle. "It's okay. Waiting made me want to fuck you harder." Brian was already acting more aggressive. Robin liked that. "What would you do to me?" Robin already knew, but still longed to be told. I would rub my palm against your soaking wet pussy while whispering filth in your ear, making you want me bad, so bad you would beg for my dick. Brian didn't have to rub anything anywhere. Robin was perfectly willing to start begging right now. Shouldn't be texting. I'm being very bad. Have to go soon. Will you spank me later? They'd never done anything like spanking before. Robin was curious to see how he would respond. She felt the buzz, instantly followed by the biggest and best tingle yet. You are a very, very bad girl, Robin. I think you deserve to deep-throat my dick while I spank you. Robin was soaking wet. Lucy may as well have been at Elizabeth's or hiding on Mars. Oh yes, that's the perfect punishment. Robin was about to get more graphic, but the conscience she'd been trying to keep in the closet was banging hard against the wood, demanding that she get up and go look for Lucy. She didn't wait for Brian's response, which she was sure would have something to do with whipped cream or honey, garnishes he often introduced near the end of their sexting, even though they'd never done anything that sticky in bed for real. She texted, BBL, want to spend rest of time at park with Lucy, we'll call when home. Robin felt suddenly sick, bloated from 1,000 pounds of guilt. What the hell am I doing? I'm officially the world's worst mom. Into what sort of nightmare had she slipped? How had she gotten stuck between sick in her stomach and the gummy sticky in between her legs? Ignoring her daughter while sexting with a man she barely knew and certainly didn't love. Robin swallowed a sudden and surprisingly high wave of guilt. Steve was a good man who didn't deserve to be cheated on just because she was feeling ignored, overburdened, and underappreciated, the same recipe that likely cooked half the country's affairs. Steve was better than an affair, so was she. The flutter of guilt thickened with a thud inside her as Robin thought of the workshop Steve had built her in the back of the house because she had begged for a place to nurture her creativity in quiet. She'd retreated to the workshop maybe twice, one for each time she'd invited Brian inside it. Robin started searching the park, looking from the sprawling playset to the swings, then over to the sandbox. Lucy was nowhere. Robin trotted toward the play equipment, scanning the park on her way. Robin swallowed again, trying not to hate herself. Lucy deserved a mum who would play hide-and-seek with her, without using it as an opportunity to sneak in another couple of minutes' worth of illicit sexting. Her problems with Steve didn't mean Lucy should suffer. She didn't deserve it. To Lucy, love may as well have been spelled T-I-M-E. Loving Lucy was easy. It was far harder to give her undivided attention, at least without resenting or counting the minutes. Yet even if Lucy was occasionally needy or all-consuming, most times she simply wanted eye contact as she asked her questions, recited her stories, or listed all of her favourite things in order. Lucy's needs were reasonably simple. To go on a treasure hunt in the house or out in the garden, draw a picture, maybe play a game and let her win, pour extra bubbles into the bath, or warm her towel for her when she got out, build a fort with blankets and chairs, let her stay up a half hour past bedtime, and play hide-and-seek. Robin was sick of Daddy being the one who had all the fun, while she was forever in charge of the discipline. It was a lot easier to come home after a long day and be super dad, with their baby girl dropping whatever she was doing the second she heard her daddy's key in the door, running so fast she sometimes tripped on her way, leaping into Steve's arms before he'd even closed the door behind him. Steve was a good man and a great father. Isn't that what she wanted for their Lucy? Her dad would cast her image of the ideal man, the model for who she would one day choose as her mate. Steve gave Lucy something Robin never could. And as much as it hurt to stare that truth in the eyes, it wasn't a bad thing. "Lucy," Robin called, not wanting to play hide-and-seek for a single second longer. She didn't see her daughter anywhere, and it was far too long since she had. Robin swallowed again, a gnarled ball of horrible snot stuck in her throat, sick with sudden realization. Not that what she was doing with Brian was disrespectful to Steve, but that it had deeply affected her daughter Lucy as well. What if something inside Lucy knew? What sort of example am I setting? Even if it was only subconscious, what was Robin saying to Lucy about her father with every sext sent? "Lucy!" Robin screamed, spinning through the park, her eyes wildly searching for her daughter. She ran to the bank of trees at the far side of the park, circling around the group of trees twice, in case Lucy was a step ahead and hiding, but Robin couldn't find her. She was good at hiding, but not this good. Usually she would have given her location away with a fit of giggles within 30 seconds of hiding. Robin went back to the swings, then over to the playset again. She looked behind every trash can, and even went out to the parking lot where she looked behind and beneath everything in the parking lot, from an old Audi to a brand new BMW Z4. "Lucy!" Raw panic seeped into her skin like winter frost over on autumn lawn. "Lucy! Lucy!" Robin would have screamed her throat raw, but suddenly felt terrified that the people around her, the man with the big beard and yogurt, the gaggle of women trading their gossip, and the old, short, squat woman with the tiny little girl about Lucy's age, who had taken the place of the tall man with the twins, would all know exactly what a horrible mother she was. That she'd lost her daughter while sexting with a man who wasn't her husband. They would know it. They'd smell it on her, like flies circling the stink of rotting fruit. Robin screamed for her daughter anyway. "Lucy! Lucy!" She drew a deep breath between her flutters of panic. "Lucy! Lucy!" She had to find Lucy now, no matter how much attention she called to herself, or how foolish she'd look if Lucy suddenly appeared laughing behind her. Every second that passed sent Robin deeper and deeper into a nightmare come true. Where else can I look? Should she waste her time circling the park again, fueled by the fraying hope that she'd somehow missed her little girl hiding somewhere obvious? Lucy had hidden 100 times before, and Robin always found her in less than a minute, even though she'd usually pretended she didn't have a clue, because that's what parents did, like how Lucy waved at her each time she passed by on the merry-go-round, and Robin always waved back. "Lucy! Lucy!" Robin kept screaming, but like every other time saw nothing but foreign stares in return. The short woman with the little girl leaned low and whispered something into the tiny child's ear, then ran over to Robin. "Is your daughter missing?" she said, not a hint of accusation edging her question. Robin nodded, trying not to panic. "I can't find her," she said. "We were playing hide and seek, but when I went to look for her, she disappeared." "It's okay," the woman soothed. "She'll turn up. That's what kids do." "Not Lucy." Robin shook her head. The old woman smiled the same smile she'd probably used 1,000 times before to calm down young mothers, then said something she'd probably said out loud at least 100. "You never think it could be your kid until it is. I've been watching children for nearly 40 years, and I can promise you that's always the case. Your daughter's safe," she said, then spread her kind smile wider. The old woman was right. Robin had to breathe. Lucy was in the park somewhere, unless... It hadn't occurred to Robin that Lucy might have gone home. They were, after all, just 3 blocks away. Except that didn't sound like Lucy, and even an old woman who had been watching other people's children for 4 decades couldn't change her mind about that. At least, not without her searching through the park again. Robin gave Lucy's description to the old woman, then doubled her efforts, lowered her panic, and peeked into every nook and cranny she might have missed, from high to low and everywhere in between. As she circled the park several more times, innocent onlookers from earlier all seemed potentially dangerous, pretending not to see as the first tears fell from her eyes. Robin hated herself with a coiled guilt she'd not felt since she was 14, standing beside her cousin Tommy at the edge of Bear Lake, throwing rocks toward a family of ducks swimming near the shore. She'd wanted to impress Tommy, 2 years older and 1,000,000 times cooler, by scaring the ducks. In her head, Robin saw the ducks scatter as her rocks slapped the water beside them, but her aim was off, and the stone flew too far, ricocheting off a far rock wall and bouncing back, hard at the mother duck's head. The mother duck sank beside a dollop of red in the lake, leaving 5 motherless ducks behind her. Like at the edge of Bear Lake, guilt draped a shadow over her, cast by the sun of her horrible self. Robin's daughter, the second heart that beat just beyond her own, wasn't in the park. "Lucy! Lucy!" Nothing. Robin pulled out her phone to check the time, shocked to see a 6 sexts from Brian, each doing the opposite of turning her on. She'd been so focused on finding her daughter that she'd missed every buzz, and certainly hadn't felt any tingle. Even more shocking and infinitely more terrifying, a full hour was missing, along with her daughter. The realization turned Robin's knees to noodles. Waist-deep in panic, she had to slam her palm onto the trunk of the nearest tree to keep from falling. She looked over at the old woman, pushing the tiny girl in her swing, shrugging her shoulders as she stared over at Robin with kind but helpless eyes. Robin told herself that everything would be okay. It had to be. That was how panic worked. It made you illogical, stupid. Dread crept inside and stretched your flesh, made you feel like you were floating through the impossible, horrible and inevitable in unison, leaving little if any hope of finding the far side. She breathed herself into a calm, looking around at the legion of onlookers and fighting the urge not to run up to each of them screaming, demanding to know where her daughter was. But no, that was ridiculous. Lucy was at home, she has to be. She waved to the old woman, said she'd be right back, and if she saw Lucy, tell her to wait. Robin then turned and started running the 3 blocks home. She was halfway there when her phone buzzed. Far from a tingle, Robin pulled the phone from her pocket, angry, then glared at the screen. "I can't wait to come on your tits," she growled, dropped the phone into her pocket, then ran faster, trying not to hate herself, knowing she'd have plenty of time to hate herself later, after she found her precious Lucy. "Please, God, let me find her. I swear I'll never lose sight of her again. I'll never see Brian again, and I swear I'll do anything you want, just please." Robin made it another block before her phone buzzed again, this time with the insistence of a ring rather than with the fleeting, flirting buzz of a sext. God damn it! If Brian was calling her, especially right now, she would tear his fucking head off. She was a block from home, 100 or so steps from a clear view of her front porch. Robin should have kept running, but a mother searching for her missing child can never ignore a ringing phone. She stopped running, clutching her side with one hand as she dug the phone from her pocket with the other, shocked to see that along with several missed sexts, she had 3 missing calls. What was wrong with her phone? Fuck! All 3 calls were from Steve, including the one now buzzing in her hand. Robin wondered if she should ignore it, then realised she didn't have a choice. What could she say? What would she tell him? No, she had to say nothing until there was something to say. With a world of panic inside her, Robin hit ignore, dropped the phone in her pocket, then ran the rest of the way to her house. She raced to the porch, feeling drunk from the difficulty of getting her key to work in the lock, while yelling "Lucy" from the porch. The door swung violently open from the weight of Robin's body, and her knees slapped the smooth varnish of the hardwood as she slipped and fell to the floor. She scrambled to her feet, screaming for Lucy as the shrill ringing of her home phone cut through the silence of the house. Robin ran into the kitchen, grabbed the phone from the counter, then looked at the caller ID. Steve. Again, what the hell does he want? His insistence was petrifying. Robin swallowed. What if he knows Lucy is missing? What if he knows why? But what if he can help find her? Maybe he knows where she is. What if all she had to do was answer the phone and admit that she didn't know where their daughter was? Absolutely not. The voicemail kicked on, but clicked off before Stephen could leave a message. She wasn't sure if the voicemail cut him off before he could talk, or if he hung up. She had to search the house first and see if Lucy decided to hide at home. This was exactly the kind of thing that a child seeking attention might do to get what she needed. But Lucy wasn't in her bedroom or her bathroom or their bedroom or their bathroom. She wasn't in the laundry room or the garage or the living room or the dining room, and she wasn't in any of the closets, in the backyard, or hiding under a single cover on any bed in the house. The phone continued ringing, 3 more times as Robin scoured the house. Each time she checked the caller ID, Steve every time. What the hell was his problem? Robin would have cried if she thought she could afford either the tears or the time, but she couldn't. She drowned in panic instead. Not because she'd fallen in the deepest waters of deceit, but because she'd stayed too long. The phone rang again. This time Robin knew she had to answer. Maybe he knows where Lucy is. Maybe he came home early and surprised her at the park and they went to get ice cream without telling me. Maybe Steve saw me sexting Brian and figured he'd teach me a lesson. She gathered her courage, then crossed the living room to the phone, telling herself it was a good thing. Whatever humiliation she suffered at the hands of Steve, knowing she let Lucy out of her sight, would be instantly dimmed by him telling her where their daughter was. Robin pressed the giant call button with her trembling thumb, then brought the receiver to her ear, shaking the entire way. But by the time she breathed her hello, there was nothing but dial tone to answer. Panic returned, meaner than before. She thought of calling Steve, but couldn't. Robin had already looked everywhere in the house several times and in the backyard, but she started looking again. It had been nearly 90 horrifying minutes since she'd last laid eyes on Lucy. She tried not to think about all the horrible things that could happen to a little 4-year-old girl in an hour and a half gone missing. Tried not to think about all the things she'd heard in cop movies when a kid goes missing. What if she is alone and crying somewhere in a ditch? What if she was abducted? What if she's dead? The last thought was too much to consider. She couldn't think of that. No. Robin stormed through the house, screaming Lucy's name. There was nothing in Robin's life she wouldn't trade to hold her Lucy, to know her baby was safe, to believe she hadn't brought harm to her daughter through her horrible, selfish actions. 2 hours earlier, Robin didn't believe in God, but with the ardent belief of a deathbed confessor, she prayed for the second time in an hour to the good Lord, his son, Jesus, and any other God who might be listening. Her phone buzzed. Another text. Robin pulled the iPhone from her pocket, growling. This text wasn't from Brian. It was from a number she didn't know. No name was above the digits. Her eyes settled on the text for a second before the scream built and then died in her throat. Robin gasped, then panted, dropping her phone as she fell to her knees, scrambling to retrieve it so she could prove to her mind that her eyes had been lying. They weren't, and the truth mocked her with the horror of the text. Do you know where your daughter is? The sound finally fell from her mouth, fulfilling the promise of her frozen scream. Robin whimpered as she quickly texted the mystery caller back. Who are you? The longest 3 minutes of Robin's life crawled by. And then, it doesn't matter who I am. Though you might have read about me in the paper, I tend to get around a lot. So many kids, so little time. Robin whimpered again. Where is she? Tell me now, I'll give you anything you want. The next text came so fast, Robin had to believe it was ready and waiting. What I want is for you to think long and hard. I'm going to ask you some questions. 5 questions, Robin, and if you can answer at least 3, Lucy will make it home for dinner. If not, well, I'll let your imagination fill in the gaps. Robin wanted to refuse, wanted to tell the mystery texter no, and tell him to fuck off. But what choice did she have? She swallowed, then whimpered again, wiping the tears from her swollen red eyes. What is Lucy's favourite colour? Robin shocked herself with a smile. Purple and pink. Lucy didn't have a favourite colour. It was always purple and pink, never just one. The pause felt far too long before Robin was again reading her screen. That is correct. Robin choked on her sudden sob, waiting for the next text. What is Lucy's favourite food? Her smile spread wider as she dared to believe she would see her beautiful Lucy alive. Ice cream sandwiches, any flavour, but mint chip is the best. Robin furiously texted her answer, hoping Lucy hadn't changed her mind for whoever was holding her and forcing her into answers. While Lucy never changed her mind about her favourite colour, she often did regarding food. 6 months ago, Lucy didn't even like ice cream and would have happily traded Doggy the rabbit for a bottomless bowl of spaghetti. But for the last month, it had been ice cream sandwiches for sure. Silence was thunder, and the endless wait flooded Robin with panic. She cycled through her mind, replaying every possible spot of danger at the park, both real and imagined. What about the people who had been there? Had one of them taken her daughter? Her mind flashed to the tall man with the twins, and for a horrible second she was sure it was him. She started poring over his every detail, from his high hairline to his thick eyebrows. Full enough to see from 30 yards across the park. Fat like the red and blue stripes on his tie. What if it was the fat man with the beard, or the old woman pretending to care? Who's to say the little girl was supposed to be with her? Everyone looked guilty when it was your child missing. The house phone rang again. She looked at the phone's caller ID. It was Steve. Again. Did he somehow know? Why was he calling non-stop? She was about to answer his call when the answering machine began to play back Lucy's voice, almost mocking her now. Mummy, Daddy and Lucy aren't available. Please leave a message. Bye-bye. And then Steve's voice. Hey, Robin, are you there? I got these texts from someone saying they have Lucy, and if I want to find her, I needed to ask you what's going on. Is this some kind of sick joke? Please, call me back. A long moment of silence stretched, and Robin was pretty sure it sounded like Steve was crying. He then said, I'm getting worried, and I'm going to call the cops if I don't hear from you. Please, Robin. As Steve spoke, her cell phone buzzed with another text. Very good. Then a second buzz with another question. Where was Lucy hiding? The voicemail cut Steve off as he called for her again. "Robin, are you there, Robin?" Robin nearly dropped her iPhone as another whimper fell from her mouth. It had to be someone from the park. They were watching her, watching them, the whole time. Robin let them take Lucy away right from under her nose, when she should have been watching her child. It was all her fault. Robin couldn't answer the kidnapper's question. Her fingers wouldn't work as she was again swallowed by panic. The kidnapper texted, "I'm waiting." Robin had no idea what to say. What if she got the answer wrong? Would he let her give more than one answer? 10, 9, 8, 7. Robin texted in panic, "Wait." Immediately the kidnapper responded, "No." Then the kidnapper wrote, 4, 3, 2. Robin mashed her thumbs against the glass. Behind the big trash can, her heart slammed inside her chest, seemingly 1,000,000 times before the iPhone buzzed in her hand. That is incorrect. Then the kidnapper asked, "Why did you lose her, Robin?" "Because we were playing hide and seek." Wrong. For a second, Robin wondered if this was that fucking asshole, Brian, but her heart was beating so fast she couldn't slow it, or her thoughts, long enough to force her mind into logic. She screamed when she saw the next text. "Final question." Then fell into a rattling sob when she saw what it said. "Where is Lucy right now?" "That's not fair," she cried out, as if the kidnapper could hear her. She couldn't answer that. If she could, she wouldn't be on the phone with the monster. She'd be kicking his ass and taking her daughter back. Robin suddenly realised how stupid she'd been. She should have called the police the moment she couldn't find Lucy, but then she would have to admit everything, to the cops, and not just herself. She was responsible. The next text was the worst yet. "Unlike you, I'm true to my word." The text was horrible enough since Robin knew what the monster had promised, but it was made worse by the attachment that buzzed her cell a moment later. An audio file she was nearly too scared to play. Robin lowered her sweaty, trembling finger onto the file, then fell to her knees as a fit of horrible sobs filled her living room. The impossible agony of her little Lucy, screaming at the top of her lungs. "Help me, help me. They're going to get me, Mummy. I don't know what to do. I'm so scared." Lucy's horrible screams were spaced several seconds apart, as if each new cry was fueled with a fresh injection of terrible pain. Robin started mashing her thumbs on the soft glass, typing as fast as she could. "I'm sorry for everything I've done. I take it all back. I'm horrible, and it's all my fault, but please, please show mercy on my daughter. Take me instead. I'll do anything you want now and forever. Send Lucy to my husband, and I will come to you." The monster's text was ready. "Do you love your husband?" The question hit her like a slap in the face. "Of course I do." There was another long pause, then, "Would you like to see Lucy?" Robin swallowed and whimpered, "Of course. I'll do anything." After 1 minute that felt like 1,000, there was a final text. "Lucy is home, in the one place you never thought to look, but you might not like what you find. Oh, by the way, I am like you." I lied. Robin stared at the phone, waiting for the next text, heart in her throat, as she hoped the monster was lying about taking Lucy. That she was fine after all. But then the next message came. "You never could have saved her. I knew you wouldn't be able to answer the questions, so I just went ahead and killed her. She's been dead for over 40 minutes. Robin screamed, staring at the phone, waiting for another text to tell her it was a lie. But another text never arrived. She ran through the house, crying, searching for her daughter and hoping to God she wouldn't find her dead. Please, God, please. She'd already looked out back in all of Lucy's usual places in their not-too-large backyard. Every place but the workshop out back. The workshop Steve built on her insistence, where she never went to work. Robin slowly approached the workshop, fear gripping her tighter with every step. She might have deserved any number of horrible things, but Lucy was innocent. She didn't do anything. The horrible sorrow inside her shredded her to pieces with a quivering terror that sank into her marrow, leaving her bones so hollow they could barely keep her from falling. Robin wrapped her fingers around the doorknob as fresh dread swam through her veins. She opened the door and felt her pounding heartbeat swell in her throat when she saw Lucy, smiling, bright-eyed, and sitting on Steve's bouncing knee. "Hey there, Robin," he said. His eyes were cold. "We've been trying to call you." Lucy was laughing. "Hi, Mummy," she yelled, clearly delighted. "Daddy picked me up from the park. He said we could make the game of hide-and-seek even more fun. But you couldn't find us, so Daddy said it would be fun to come out here so we could play a new game called Scream. Want to play?" "I want a fucking divorce," Robin said.